to me, one of the big things is how many people are there, have been
Mm,
there. Because, as you said, pitchers and catchers was yesterday. Position players is until next Monday. But I haven't seen like Hector Neris, the
okay,
new pitcher that they just signed,
right.
and Christopher Morell. I haven't seen Christopher yet. Other than that, I can't really think of anyone that I haven't seen.
Spring training is here, and since I can't quite get out there just yet because I got this thing called a daughter and she's got a birthday, and that definitely comes first, y'all. Sorry. Cubs family second, real family first. That's just the way it goes. But we will be out there on February 17th, 8 a.m. sharp at Mesa, and for about 4 or 5 days, just giving you tons of video and just anything I'm seeing, I'm going to be grabbing on video and I'm going to be posting it to YouTube. I'm going to be posting it to Twitter and Instagram and all the good things. So make sure you're following us everywhere. But since I can't be out there, I've become a really good friend with Rich Biesterfeld, and he's a guy that is been at Mesa and lives in Mesa and is at all spring training all the time. So I figured since I can't be there and be reporting back to you guys, let's get someone whose eyes and ears are there. So let's get a quick update from Rich Biesterfeld here about Cubs spring training the first couple days. Hey guys, if you are ever on Cubs Twitter or Instagram and you're like, who's taking those awesome photos out at Mesa? It's this guy that we were talking to today, Rich Biesterfeld. Really excited to have you on and talk a little bit of Cubs spring training, man.
Oh, great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be there with you in just a day or so. I would be there with you, but it's my daughter's birthday today. That's why I'm sporting the Madeline's daddy shirt right now. She turned 1 today, so
Oh,
got family first and then Cubs.
absolutely.
Tell me, how's first of all, how long you been doing photographs out there? They're awesome,
Mhm.
and you do a great job, man.
Thanks. I've been out here since 2016, but probably started doing it more seriously around 2020, around when after COVID was kind of ramping down during Instructs. And it was like, okay, I got to get out of the house. It's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And started doing more and making more connections with players. And it kind of has spun up from there more and more.
What's been the coolest part about just covering a team that you love so much? Is it? I mean, do you have pinch me moments of like,
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
go.
Definitely.
Tell me more about that.
So I think, it kind of a little bit of not I won't make it a roll log story, but getting to meet a lot of the players. Meeting guys like right after they're drafted and then seeing them progress the system, make it up to the big leagues. Getting to know them, getting to know their families. And in, let's see, which was it, 2022, I think it was. I was fortunate through some connections. I had media credentials for the last spring training game.
Nice.
And so I'm shooting from the camera well by the Cubs dugout. I've gotten to know Ethan Roberts fairly well. He's become a
Very cool.
friend. Ethan had a great spring. He pitches in that game. He comes out. He sits down in the dugout. David Ross comes over, shakes his hand, and you couldn't see for sure, but reading his body language, that's when David Ross told him he had made the big leagues. And just seeing the emotion
Yeah.
wash over him and capturing those photos, that's got to be one of my top ones.
I remember seeing that video of that
Mhm.
moment. I mean, because if I remember correctly, I mean, he was like on the verge, if not crying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That.
You could see like the shoulders kind of slump, like
Yeah. Yeah.
he got the news, and then Ross walked away. Some other guys congratulated, but then he kind of put his head in his hands, and yeah, the emotion just hit him.
Very cool. Well, Rich,
Hmm.
let's get to it, man.
Sure.
Day 2 of spring training.
Hmm.
Pitchers and catchers have reported. We all, got to hear from Jed and Carter
Hmm.
on just, how the off season is going and the
Hmm.
excitement of, especially they were very focused on a lot of prospects. But with you being out there,
Hmm.
what has been the big thing so far in the first couple days? And I know you've been there even beforehand. So what's been
Yeah.
sticking out to you? What seems to be like, hey, this is something that isn't in the news. This isn't something that maybe
Yeah.
has not been in reports yet from your perspective of being on the field.
Yeah. I think to me, one of the big things is how many people are there, have been
Mm,
there. Because as you said, pitchers and catchers was yesterday. Position players is until next Monday. But, I think, and they may be around, but I haven't seen them. But I haven't seen like Hector Neris, the
okay.
new pitcher that they just signed,
Right.
and Christopher Morell. I haven't seen Christopher yet. other than that, I can't really think of anyone that I haven't seen, position player wise, or pitchers. And most of those guys have been here a week or two. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, I know, like, yesterday, they talked about it. Shota was throwing a bullpen, but where I didn't have access to be able to get to see it, so I couldn't, see anything other than some of the video that's been posted by others. But real anxious to kind of, get to see him do that. Um, I don't know that I have anybody that I would say, the quote unquote best shape of their life,
Right.
the running joke.
The
But
typical spring training shape, yeah.
yeah. But I think one thing that did jump out at me is Seiya Suzuki.
Okay.
Seiya looks good. Last year when he came in, he almost looked a little too bulky.
Hmm.
And remember, he ended up, I think it was like a lat strain, and he missed
Yep.
some time at the beginning of the season. So I kind of wonder if they modified something. But I mean, he looks really good. He looks like, looks strong, but he doesn't look, quite as, built up as he did last year.
Okay, well, that's interesting. And then you
Mhm.
mentioned Christopher Morell. The good news is we do know he's doing baseball activity. There's been some
Mhm.
stuff on Twitter
Yeah.
today of him hitting some bombs over in the Dominican. I think he's in the Dominican right
Okay.
now.
Mhm.
So, even though he's not there, some baseball
Mhm.
activity. That's good to hear. I
Mhm.
feel like just about every year we're kind of surprised how much attendance there is,
Yeah.
but especially now that games have started earlier, right? We're
Mhm.
seeing games start on February 23rd.
Mhm.
Does there seem to be any sort of rush to try to get are you noticing practices this year being more intensive than last year just because of how much they're having to put in a shorter amount of time before games start?
Yeah. I don't know if I would say it's more of that, but I mean, just you see more of the players in camp and throwing. I mean, and especially like for instance, the pitchers. I was surprised to see some guys throwing, what they call it, a side session or a bullpen, um, almost right away, almost like their first day in camp. Um,
Right.
I mean, the flip side of that is I think everybody is throwing during the off season and things like that. So it's not like they've been sitting around the whole time. But usually, still, it seemed like it would be a few days in camp before they started doing that.
Okay, that's interesting. Well,
Mhm.
and I know that you've been there a lot before camp has even been
Mhm.
talked about. So, how often were you going to Mesa or sorry, to Sloan,
Yeah.
before, and who were you seeing even earlier on?
So part of the reason I do that, I cover the big league team. I do a lot of stuff with the minor leagues.
Yeah.
I probably cover the minor leagues more than the big leagues. Easier access and things like that. But during starting in January, the Cubs had I'm not sure what their official term is, but like a prospect mini camp.
Okay.
So it wasn't the full minor leagues, but quite a few. I think I'm drawing a blank on the number now, but I think it was around 65 or something, 65 to 70 guys were in camp already. So that's kind of why I was going out to the park, 2 to 3 times a week, getting some shots of them. And while you're doing that, usually the pitchers were working out first and stretching and throwing plyo balls and things. And so usually I'd start out in the morning at that area. But one of the first days I noticed, wait, there's Justin Steele, there's Kyle Hendricks, there's Jamison Tyone. So,
Nice.
so those guys were in camp and you'd see them. And then you'd see Edward Alzolay. I think Jordan Wicks was in for like a week right after the Cubs convention and then before going home and then coming back. So, I joke about it, but it's in some ways it's like Christmas morning. Every day when you get there, it's like, okay, there's a few more guys in camp. Like today, I saw Caleb Knight, Ethan Hearn, Blake Whitney from the minor leagues that I hadn't seen yet around camp. So,
Cool.
it's I say Christmas, also kind of like the first day of school. Hey, how was your off season? I haven't seen you yet.
So, because there's so many prospects right now, and that really
Mhm.
is the focus, given the
Mhm.
fact that, Bellinger's not back yet, and
Right.
the biggest signing really the Cubs had over the offseason was Eminaga, and there's still a
Mhm.
lot of question marks around him. It really
Mhm.
feels like a lot of the attention at this moment is amongst the prospects.
Right.
Does it feel like there's more energy in this spring training because of that, just because of the young guys and all
Mhm.
of the I don't wanna put expectations on them, but
No,
really that's the word that comes to mind right now.
no, I think there definitely is good energy, good vibes. I mean, some of the guys that you see, like Pete Crow Armstrong, Kevin Alcantara, Jordan Wicks, Matt Mervis, Michael Bush. Um, those guys are good ball players. I mean, there's no getting around that. And I know, different fans have different, everybody has to fan their own way. I get that.
Yeah.
But some people who have, oh, Pete Crow Armstrong is a bust after, 19 at bats,
Yeah,
or,
yeah, right.
Matt Mervis isn't very good because, he had 99 at bats. Those guys can play. I've
Yeah.
watched them every step of their way. And, sometimes a guy needs some time, needs some runway to make adjustments and things. I think that's where Craig Counsell, I think, is going to be a really big help to those young guys, or Luke Little. Luke's another great one that I think
Yeah.
of, where I think Luke could really blossom this year because he's got great stuff. Given more opportunities, him, Daniel Palencia.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool is there's so many names out there. It's not like, I think back, 10 years ago when your hopes were pinned on, Brett Jackson and Josh Vitters.
Right.
Nothing bad saying about either of those guys, but you didn't
Nothing
have
happened.
a slew
Yeah.
of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there's so many that could pop for us.
That's exciting. Well, and
Mhm.
I'm excited for Luke, and especially he's a friend of the show, and his
Uh-huh.
family's a friend of the show. So I'm really excited to see what he does
Yeah.
this year. I've been hearing some whispers
Mhm.
about Brennan Davis being in shape and
Mhm.
looking like he's healthy
Mhm.
and looking athletic, looking like he's
Mhm.
matching the ball again. What have you seen anything
Yeah.
on that front?
Yeah, I've uh, seen him taking BP. I've seen him doing base running drills, doing running in the outfield. So far there hasn't been a lot of I'm going to say outfield drills, so to speak, where So I haven't seen him. How's he tracking the ball? How's he moving to the ball? But I mean, he is another great example of what just a couple years removed from the Futures Game All-Star. If he can be healthy, both him and Alexander Canario are, there's some talent that a lot of people just haven't been talking about. I mean, I think everybody would love to have Bellinger back. I get that, but there's a lot of really good talent coming up through the system too.
I think that's the biggest thing is there's so many different players right now and so
Hmm.
much flexibility slash
Right.
versatility on this team that while we do kind of have in our minds, like here's maybe the 20 guys that we kind of know are on this
Hmm.
team, there's like this 6 spots on the team ish
Right.
that it's like,
Hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Luke Little and Daniel Palencia, or if it's
Hmm.
Matt Mervis and Michael Bush. Like, there's so many different spots that I'm just
Hmm.
like, it would be surprising, but also at the same
Right.
time, it wouldn't be surprising.
Hmm.
And I think one of the guys that you already mentioned is Ethan Roberts. Like,
Oh yeah.
I actually would not be surprised if he broke spring with the club, even though there's
Hmm.
so many spots available on this or so many guys competing for that final few spots in the
Hmm.
bullpen. How's he been looking? Have you been able to see him at all?
He's looked good.
Good.
Um,
Nice.
like I say, I'm going to be, full disclosure. I'm going to be biased on Ethan because I
I know you
really
love
like
him.
the
Yeah.
guy. But the spin rates he gets
Mm,
are unlike just about anybody else that can generate it. He's fully healthy. This offseason, he wasn't in any kind of rehab protocol or whatever. It was just a normal offseason for him. So yeah, he's another one of those kind of the dark horse secret weapon kind of guys that I think could really make a difference in there. And the thing I would say about him is he is not going to be outworked. He's going to
mm.
put in the work and he's going to be dedicated. And I've got high hopes for him.
Very cool. So with Neris not being there, there's really
Hmm.
3 new guys that you might have had a chance
Hmm.
to see out
Hmm.
there, Imanaga, Michael Bush, and maybe Yency Almonte.
Hmm.
Has anything been surprising, stood out to you just about
Hmm.
seeing any of those 3? Anything along the work ethic or the
Yeah,
way that the ball jumps off the bat or just the way that
yeah,
they look from the field? Anything at all?
yeah. I've seen all three. Like I say, I haven't really seen Almonte or Imanaga really face anybody, so it's kind of
Mhm.
hard to get a feel. I have seen Bush quite a bit taking balls at first base. I've seen him taking BP. My friend John Antonoff, who's Baseball in Focus, he had the video about a week or so ago of some batting practice with Bush, where he just clubbed one high into the netting on the one field.
Nice.
Um, yeah, you could hear the reaction from the other guys who were taking BP in that group too, where all of a sudden, Bushy! Or they yell. So, yeah, I think, like I say, well, you know, it's batting practice. It's February, so you don't want to get put your expectations ridiculously high, but it's good to see. It's good to see. I
Awesome.
think there's going to be some good talent.
Awesome. Okay, Rich, for the few people that are packing up their bags right now, getting ready to go to spring training, you're
Hmm.
a vet when it comes to that.
Hmm.
What would you recommend, whether it's practices or games, that
Uh-huh.
people do to get the best experience at spring training?
So, um, I would say one thing I always recommend to people: spend some time in the backfields.
Mm,
They refer to it as the quad. You've kind of got the stadium. There's a pathway that connects the stadium to the performance center, the clubhouse where the players are. On the other side of that is what we call the quad, four diamonds together. Um, Usually, if you get there like early before a game, like mid to late morning, walk over there before the game and see who's on there, because there's a lot of guys that you might see on there who will be on the Cubs maybe later this year or in the next year or two. Um, they also put up, they got some like little stands with a QR code where you can um, scan that code in and it'll tell you what's going on. It doesn't refer to the minor leagues, it's just for the major leagues. That's nice to have. What I would say is don't put a lot of stock in that. Uh, for instance, yesterday it said there were no major league activities scheduled. About 11 o'clock, you had between the two fields where the major league team usually is, you had all the pitchers doing pitchers fielding performance, and then they came off the field, and then you had Dansby and Nico and Michael Bush and Matt Mervis and Nick Madrigal taking BP on the field. According to the schedule, that wasn't happening. There was nothing on there. So just kind of keep your eyes open, wander around, just have fun, talk to people. It's a great place to meet a lot of other Cub fans, and I would say like 99.9% of them are great. Mhm.
Well, Rich, if people want to go ahead and follow you and you're watching on YouTube right now, you do see it's up here on your screen, Instagram and
Mhm.
Twitter/X, whatever you want to call that. Uh, Beast 22. That's BIEST 22. And I mean, you're pretty much posting stuff on a daily basis, especially during spring
Sure.
training. So appreciate all your work, man. Appreciate you taking some time to talk with us and give Setup Nation a
Absolutely.
little bit of an insight on how spring training is looking so far. We appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks again to Rich. And again, we're going to have all of the video that you want, at least what I can access. This is going to be my first year of spring training where I'm actually out there and filming everything. I think I have pretty much full access to just about everything. Maybe not the bullpens as much, but definitely once they start doing live BP and everything, I'm going to be out there. So I'm going to be bringing you a ton of video, and that's going to go onto YouTube mainly, but we'll also do some clips on Twitter and Instagram as well. So make sure you're following us at Setup Man Pod on both of those. And really just anything at all that you want, make sure that you comment on these videos. If you're saying, hey, haven't seen anything of Alcantara yet, like let me know. I'll go and try to get stuff. I want to make sure that we get as much footage as possible so that you guys are feeling like you're right there at spring training. But that's going to do it for us here, Setup Nation. I'm going to go put my arm on ice and get ready for this trip. We'll see ya.